Welcome all of you. Today I am here to introduce you central place theory. So central place theory first of all put forward by the economic geographer Walter Kester in 1933 in a German book, and later on in 1966 it was translated by C.W. Buskin in English, and title of that theory was Central Places in Southern Germany, which gave it much wider reading throughout the world. The Chrysler's entire original work was divided into the three important parts: theoretical part, connecting part, and regional part. The theoretical part is concerned with the setting of the theory, as each and every theory has theoretical part, and later on this theoretical part was tested into the real world situation. So same thing was happening in case of the central place theory. So in theoretical part, only the setting of the theory and conceptual part was taken into consideration. Then second part is the connecting part. In the connecting part, practical methods of the theory has been tested into the real world situation. And later on, the specifically theory was applied for the southern Germany and examined for the southern Germany. So these are the major objectives of the theory or our study: to appraise the applicability of the central place theory at current situation, critically evaluate the central place theory. Each and every theory have certain assumptions. So this theory also have the physical and behavioral assumption. So here, when we look at the types of the assumptions, most of the assumptions are normative in nature and based on efficiency optimality criteria. So rational thinking is taken into consideration when he put forward the theory. These assumptions are divided into the two major categories: physical assumptions and behavioral assumptions. So physical assumptions are generally related to the physical aspects of the land surfaces. So first important physical assumption is there is existence of the flat and limitless plane. So according to Walter Chrysler, there is a existence of the flat and limitless plane where the topography is similar over entire plane, and that's why this flat plane playing important role in the entire theory. So when we look at the second important aspects, he also explained that soil is also uniformly fertile over entire plain. So fertility of the soil is similar here, and as it is also found similar in that quadrant also. So each and every portion of that land surface has uniform kind of the soil. That's why there are very less variation into the population or physical setup. Then third important aspects, resources are also uniform over entire region. So as resources were uniformly distributed, soil is uniformly distributed, then automatically it leads to the uniform distribution or even distribution of the population and settlement. Because population and settlement are those important characteristics of the land which are totally depends upon climatic condition, physical setup, and if the physical setup and climatic conditions are similar over the entire plane, then automatically population and settlements are also uniformly distributed. Then again, next important assumption is uniform purchasing power of the people living, so that they think and behave rationally. Wealth is also equally distributed over entire plane. Uniform transportation network in all the direction. Because of the plain area, all the directions are equally accessible. That's why uniform transportation network is found in all the direction. From any center or any area, there was a uniform transportation network towards all the areas. So this is also important thing that we have to consider. Then all central places of the same types are equally accessible. All central places of the equal types means there are three kinds of the central places which were discussed into the central place theory: lower order, middle order, and higher order central places. Means because of the plain area, we have uniform transportation network throughout the entire area, and that's why there is a equal transportation network, uniform transportation network, and equal accessibility. And again, the initial settlement pattern has been represented by the single dot. This means that over that plane, the initial settlement patterns are represented by such kind of the dots. So that dots are representing settlements of the farmers. And if there are group of the settlements, means groups of the farmers are there, then they were arranged in equal triangular grid. All the dots were arranged in equal triangular grid, means the distance between two nearby settlements are equal. And when we look into the group of the settlements, then that group of the settlements arrange in such a way that they form equal triangular grid. For example, the next farmer's house is like that, means in between these 3 points they form The equal triangular grids means settlement points are the apex of the triangles. So in this way, all the points are uniformly situated and they form equal triangular grid. These are the physical assumptions of the theory. Then behavioral assumptions of the theory. Behavioral assumption generally depends upon how human beings were behave. This theory is applicable when human behave like that, means rational behavior. So first one is a maximum number of the demand for goods and services should be satisfied, means most of the demands in that area were satisfied. That's why they were people were acting rationally. Second one is income of the people offering goods and services should be maximized. If income is continuously maximized, then they have the rational choice or rational thinking to select between the centers. So they behave rationally if they have such kind of the freedom, means income is maximized, maximum number of the demands for the goods and services should be satisfied. Then third one is the distance moved by the consumers to purchase these goods and services should be minimized. They think rationally. That's why they choose a central place which is closer to their area. So that's why the distance moved by the consumers to purchase these goods and services should be minimized. If minimum distance is there, they have to incur less transportation cost, and that's why savings are more. The number of the central places should be minimum possible. So according to the Walter Chrysler, if the number of the central places were minimum possible, then the consumer have a very limited choice, and from that he choose rationally. There is no interproduct differences. If in all the centers we have similar kind of the products, then consumer prepare very closest center place to purchase that particular good. That's why he also assumed that there is no interproduct differences. We are going to discuss important concepts into a central place theory. The theory is based on two important concepts, fundamental concepts and derivative concepts. So here, what is meant by the fundamental concepts? So fundamental concepts are those notions that have meaning and applicability beyond the domain of the theory. It means universally accepted concepts which he used in order to prove his concepts. So first one is the principle of the centralization and principle of the hierarchy. So here we are going to discuss principle of the centralization. All the matter in the universe, whether it was organic or inorganic, has a core or the focal point and periphery. Means, for example, when we look at our solar system, sun is at the center of the solar system. So as like that, each and every matter in the universe has a center and peripheral area. So same thing was applicable for the settlements also. When we look at the region or the area, region also have a core and peripheral areas. Village has its focal point at the temple, mosque, church, or bazaar. The smaller settlements were organized around the larger settlements, or larger settlements or larger villages were organized around the major cities, and major cities were organized around the metropolitans. The centralization is not a geometrical concept, but it is the concept concerning the relationship between central and peripheral region. So that's why he used principle of the centralization in order to prove his point. The second important fundamental concept is concept of the hierarchy. Ordering of the phenomena is observed in everywhere. Means it is also found in natural phenomena or also the human-made phenomena. For example, sun, planet, and moon form the three-tier hierarchy. Human, apes, and monkey form the three-tier hierarchy in the human evolution. So as like that, it is observed in the social phenomena or natural phenomena also. In human affairs, hierarchy occurs both natural and spontaneous. In case of the social phenomena, for example, social hierarchy or the administrative hierarchy is also there. Military or institutional hierarchy is also there. For example, even when we took the example of the college, in college level, we also found the institutional hierarchy. For example, when we look at the ranking, it started from the principal of the college. Then after the principal, there are the professors, readers, or which we call as the associate professor, assistant professors, clerk, and peon. So in this way, different tiers or different type of the hierarchies were found. So this universally accepted concept he used in order to prove the hierarchy into a settlement. He also ranked the settlements into the three important hierarchies: higher order settlements, middle order settlements, and the lower order settlements, as per the characteristics of the settlement. Now I'll move towards the second most important concept, derivative concept. So derivative concepts are those concepts which were developed by the author in order to support his theory. So there are four major derivative concepts that he discussed in his theory: the concept of the central place, the concept of complementary area, a threshold population, and range of the good. So here we are starting with the central place. Central place is the functionally important place which offer number and variety of the goods and services to the population residing there and area around. Means it is a very important place which provide number of the goods and variety of the goods to the population which were depend on that central place, and surrounding area also get benefit from that central place. Then second important concept is the complementary area. The area for which a central place is the focal point is the complementary area of that central place. So the size of the complementary area, which we also called as a trade region or the trade area, influence area, those size of the complementary areas depends upon size of the central place. For the lower order central place, complementary area is also smaller, and for the bigger central place, complementary area is also bigger. For example, when we took the example of the Kolhapur and Mumbai city, Mumbai is the metropolitan and Kolhapur is the smaller city as compared to the Mumbai. That's why when we look at the complementary area of the Kolhapur, it's definitely very smaller as compared to the Mumbai. So size of the complementary area is depend upon the importance of the central place and even the size of the central place. Then third one, threshold population. It is a minimum number of the population which required to support a particular good or service or the business. For example, when we took the example of the grocery shop and car shop, grocery shop required lower threshold population as compared to the car shop. So when we start the grocery shop at the village level, it is easily supported by the population residing there, but it is impossible to start the car shop at the village level because that car shop don't have that much amount of the population which is going to support the car shop. Threshold population is also one of the important aspects that he also take into consideration. Then next one is the range of the good. A maximum distance that consumer is prepared to travel to purchase a particular good or a services, that is nothing but the range of the good. So range of the good is also associated with the transportation cost. The person who lives very close to the central place has maximum money available as compared to the person or the consumer who live away from the central place, because latter have to pay the transportation cost. And that's why, according to the assumptions of the central place theory, all the people they have the same amount of the money available, and if the latter a consumer who is going to pay the maximum amount of the money to purchase a particular good, then automatically he have very less saving as compared to the earlier person. So the range of the good also playing very important role when we look at the central place theory. So that inner circle defines threshold population, which is minimum required people in order to support particular good and services at the center. And this outer limit define range of the good, that is a maximum distance that consumer is prepared to travel to purchase particular good and service. So that define the difference between threshold population and range of the good. He also put forwarded one table that define the availability of the functions according to the threshold population. So here, first of all, he took the threshold population and he ranked that threshold population from high to low. He then ranked goods and services according to the descending threshold value. He ranked the goods and services from 1 to 10. Here, 1 required high threshold population as compared to the 10. 10 required very less threshold population. So according to the requirement of the threshold population, goods and services were ranked in descending order. He again considered these three order centers: higher order center A, middle order center B, and lower order center C. So here when we look at the higher order center A, all kind of the goods and services were available. Here OK denotes the availability of the service and function. So here when we look at the higher order center A, all kind of the services and functions were available at the higher order center A, which required highest threshold population and also the lowest threshold population. But in case of the middle order center B, higher order functions 1 and 2 were absent into the middle order center, and the functions from 3 to 10 were available, which required lowest population as compared to the first and second one. Then when we look at the lower order center C, the functions were only available which required lowest threshold population. So the functions from 7 to 10 were available into the lower order center C. Maybe it is the village, that's why it required a very limited population to run a particular business. So the businesses which required lowest level of the threshold population only were available at the lower order center C. So now I'll move towards the distance decay effect, or which we called as a frictional effect of the distance. So in that frictional effects, he defined that in case of the frictional effect of the distance, this is the center and this is the peripheral area of that center. And as we move away from the center, the demand for the goods and services should be reduced. At the center, the demand for goods and services is high, and as we move away from the center, the demand is going to reduce. So that is known as a distance decay effect or the frictional effect of the distance. Now I'll move towards the geometry or shape of the complementary area. So most of the theories, they considered the complementary area is circular in pattern. But when there is a circular market area and each 7 entrepreneurs with the circular market area, then some areas or some consumers will remain unserved. So in order to cater these unserved customers or the consumers, suppliers move closer together. And if suppliers move closer together, it causes circular areas to overlap. So in that overlap area, when we draw a line, we will get the hexagon. So hexagon is the perfect geometry or perfect shape to serve all kind of the customers or the consumers in all the areas. So that's why he considered complementary area in the hexagonal pattern. So most important part in that theory is the ordering principles. All the setup of the theory is associated with the formation of the ordering principles. So there are 3 important ordering principles into a central place theory, which is called as a major ordering principles into a central place theory. That ordering principles are the K3 principle, K4 principle, and K7 principle. K3 is the marketing principle, K4 is the transportation principle, and K7 is the administrative principle. So why that principles are having K3, K4, and K7? So here I'm going to discuss that. Generally, each lower order center and middle order center has a fixed kind of the relationship in terms of the hierarchy. And that fixed relationship between highest order, middle order, and lower order center is denoted by the constant K. And 3, it's self-defined number of the central place, how many lower order central places served by that center, either that middle order center or higher order center. That's why it was denoted by K3, K4, and K7. So here K is the constant, 3 representing number of the central places served by that particular center. So first one is the marketing principle, which you call as K3 principle. Marketing principle is the demand optimizing principle. Here the major focus is over the demand for a particular good and services. So in case of the marketing principle, when we look at the lower order center, every lower order center have the opportunity to move towards the 3 immediately middle order centers. So borderlines of the 3 middle order centers were passes through every lower order centers. So when we look at the middle order center, every middle order center then receive 1/3 population from the 6 immediately lower order centers. So here is one lower order center, and 1/3 population of this lower order center is attracted towards this middle order center. 1/3 population from this lower order center is attracted towards this middle order center. In this way, it attracts the 1/3 population of 6 immediately lower order center towards it. Beside, it also serves its own population. So when we look at the population served by every middle order center, it is equal to 3, because when we look at 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, so 6 immediately 1/3 population is equal to 2. Beside, its own population is equal to 1. So 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. That's why K3 principle is known as a marketing principle. So when we look at the progression of the central place and progression of the complementary area, so here the progression of the central place is 1, 2, and 6. So when we look at the diagram carefully, here is a single central place, and the middle order center, lower order center is having a single central place. Then middle order center having two central places, and then third order center is having six central places. As like that, the hierarchy goes on increases. That represent the progression of the central places. Then when we look at the progression of the complementary area, the progression of the complementary area is also as like the central places. So here at the lower order center there is a single complementary area. When we look at the middle order central place, there are three complementary areas, means two of the lower order centers complementary area plus its own complementary area. That's why the three complementary areas were served by this middle order center. Then next order center also have the 9 complementary areas. As like that, the progression of the complementary area has taken place in case of the marketing principle. Now the next one is the transportation principle. As we look at the marketing principle, in case of the marketing principle, a route which link the higher order center does not passes through the lower order center. So some lower order center, for example, this lower order center, this lower order center, some lower order centers will remain unserved. So in order to come up with efficient transportation network, he put forwarded the new principle which we call as a transport principle, and it is also known as a K4 principle. So what will happen in case of the transportation principle? The route which link higher order center also passes through these lower order centers. Means all centers have same kind of the accessibility to the middle order center. Means all the lower order centers and higher order centers were served by this route. That's why it is the efficient transportation road network. So in that efficient transportation network, each lower order center may choose between two middle order centers. So one half population from this lower order center is attracted towards this middle order center. So from six immediately lower order center, each middle order center attract one half population. So one half population from this lower order center, one half population from this lower order center is attracted towards this middle order center. So as like that, the middle order center is then attract population equivalent to the three lower order center. Besides that, it also serves its own population, which is 1. So that 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So that's why each middle order center in the transportation principle serves the population equivalent to the 4 lower order centers. That's why this principle, a transportation principle, is known as a K4 principle. And when we look at the progression of the central places, at the lower order center, there is one central place. Middle order center or the next order centers, there are 3 central places. And at the next order center, there are 12 central places. And as like that, when we look at the progression of the complementary area, lower order center serve a single complementary area. Next order center serves the 4 complementary area, and again next order center serves 16 complementary areas. As like that, the progression of the complementary area is there in transport principle. Then last one is the administrative principle, which he denoted as a K7 principle. So why it is K7? Because there are very limited administrative centers in the world, and that limited administrative centers try to cover the entire area. So that's why when we look at this lower order center, 7 lower order center, they having that middle order center which serve that entire area. In case of the administrative principle, each middle order center then serves 7 lower order centers, means it attracts entire population of 6 immediately lower order centers. That's why it serves the 6 immediately lower order center plus its own population. It serves 7 centers. That's why it is known as a K7 principle. And when we look at the progression of the central places, it started lower at the lower order center, it served 1 center. And then next 6 centers also served by this middle order center. So at the lower order there is a 1 center, then next order there are 6 centers, and in next order there are 42 centers. And as like that, when we look at the progression of the complementary area, at the lower order it serves only 1 complementary area, next order it serves 7 complementary areas, and again in next order it serves 49 complementary areas, as like that progression of the central place is taken place. The next part is the application part. When this theory was applied for the southern Germany, seven levels of the central places were observed in southern Germany, ranging from smaller hamlet to metropolitan city. That seven levels are roadside hamlet, village, sub-town, town, major city, and bird city. So seven level of the hierarchy were observed in southern Germany according to the Walter Chrysler's observations. After that, a relationship between the function, population, and rank of the city is directly observed. This theory also faced certain criticisms, as each and every theory criticized by the scholar of the different ideas. The settlements are generally random and uneven. In real world situation, when we look at the settlements, they were not evenly distributed because of the variation into the physical and climatic condition or different kind of the topography is there. That's why settlements are also generally random and uneven. Theories criticize on this point. The hexagonal development of the complementary area is theoretical development. According to the Christaller, there is a hexagonal shape of the complementary area, and then we are able to serve all customers or the consumers in the area. But in real situation, hexagonal development of the complementary area is not possible. It is only theoretical development. In real world, various complicated factors are at work, and that leads to the distortion of the hexagonal shape of the complementary area. For example, according to him, there is a existence of the flat and limitless plane. But in real world situation, that a flat or limitless plane is very difficult to observe because of various kind of the mountain barriers or cultural barriers that hexagonal shape disturb. Even distribution of population is also not possible in real world situation because population densities depends upon various physical and climatic factors, and that physical and climatic factors are not uniform throughout the world. That's why it is impossible to have even distribution of the population. Theory has also been criticized for its apparently static and descriptive approach. According to him, there is a fixed hierarchy, and according to that hierarchy, there is a progression of the central places and progression of the complementary area. But the distortion of the hierarchy in real world situation is also observed. Large centers create a shadow effect on the smaller centers. Theory was also criticized on the basis of the availability of the function. According to him, higher order center have all kind of the functions available, and lower order centers are only have a very fewer function. But in real world situation, certain functions are available in lower order centers and which were absent into the higher order centers. Even every function is not available at the higher order center. When we try to apply the central place theory in Indian context, the following are the points that were observed. So according to that theory, we have one administrative center, which is the national capital. State capitals are 29 plus 7. District headquarters are 450 plus. Tahsil headquarters and block headquarters are near about 7 to 8,000. So when we look at this middle order centers, they are having maximum numbers as compared to the highest order centers and which performing administrative activities. So administrative centers are very fewer in number as compared to the marketing and transportation centers. And when we look at the gram panchayats, more than 2 lakhs of the gram panchayats are there according to this theory. So we try to apply this theory for the Indian context, but we have very diverse physical conditions and even cultural diversity is also there. That's why this theory is not that much applicable in case of the Indian context. But as per the assumptions given by the water crystal, such kind of the condition is anywhere, then this theory is very suitable for the study of the settlement structures. Thank you very much.